The broadcast.
I'm the Product Marketing Manager here at eFolder, and I'm going to be your host for today's event. Welcome to the eFolder Partner Chat Series. This webinar series brings together leading eFolder partners for business-oriented discussions. Today's topic is ShadowProtect versus Replibit, factors to consider. Today we're joined by one of our biggest and best partners, Phillip Long, CEO of Business Information Solutions. Before we go into today's agenda, let's cover a few housekeeping items. Today's session is being recorded. The recorded session of the webinar will be made available on our YouTube channel, and we're going to also make available slides, copies of the slides, to those who registered for the event. Now, with over 200 people registered for the event, we've put all participants in listen-only mode. Now, you can enjoy the audio portion of today's event by either streaming it on your computer or dialing in over the phone. Hopefully you've done one of the above so you can hear me right now. Questions are strongly encouraged throughout. Now we planned a special Q&A section at the end, but we will try to take questions as we go along. So please submit them in the questions box. So let's go into today's agenda. So as with all of our webinars, today's presentation follows a logical flow. After introducing our partner guest, Phillip, I'm going to do a brief overview of eFolder BDR for ShadowProtect and eFolder BDR for Replibit, which are two of the BDR offerings that we offer and that Phillip's company, BIS, uses. We're then going to go into an interactive back and forth discussion with Phillip about BIS's use cases for BDR for Replibit and BDR for ShadowProtect. And we're going to have Phillip discuss which factors he considers when deciding which one to pick for which client. We're then going to go into how BIS communicates the importance and value of a business continuity solution to clients. And of course, finally, we're going to open up the floor to your questions. So now let me go ahead and introduce our partner, Phillip Long. Phillip Long specializes in providing businesses with technology solutions and security consulting services. Phillip has more than 15 years of experience in the tech field. As a CEO and entrepreneur, Phillip has expanded his drive for knowledge and growth by participating in numerous peer groups with multiple industry leaders in order to learn from their success and the challenges they've overcome. After forming Business Information Solutions, or BIS, in 2001, the company has grown immensely under Philip's guidance and now consists of 3 divisions, known together as the Business Information Solutions Technology Group. Phil, thank you so much for joining us today, and welcome.
Thank you very much for having me.
Great. So, why don't we go ahead and get started, Phil, by having you tell us a little bit about BIS and what makes you special as an MSP?
Well, I think a lot of the things that we're doing is, as we all are trying to do as MSPs, we're trying to put ourselves into a category of one. And early on, as we've started, we decided that we wanted to control as much of the technology pie as we could for our clients. So really what we offer is end-to-end solutions. We're doing, I've just formed a company consulting firm that primarily I have myself and an assistant in, where I'm doing more security consulting and then I also have the IT side where we're doing a traditional MSP offerings, and then we have an office equipment company and a marketing company where we're doing digital marketing, SEO, and SMM. And what I find is that it's very good for the client, and they're excited whenever they find that they can find one vendor that can handle all of their issues.
Great. And yeah, I mean, it looks like here it says you have 180 clients. Now, how many of them are using the BDR solution?
I'm not the greatest on, I don't really keep exact score, but we probably cover about 70 or 75 servers using, either the ShadowProtect or the Replibit. And then of the rest, we use the traditional file and folder backup.
Got it. Okay, so pretty healthy number there, 70 to 75 servers protected. Great. So thanks for telling us all about your company. Now let's kind of go into an overview of the two VDR solutions we're going to be talking about today. Kind of talking about not only their features, but how they kind of differ from one another and where one might be more ideal than another. So first, let's cover eFolder VDR for ShadowProtect. Key features include numerous deployment options. So, you can buy a VDR appliance from us. We're more than happy to sell you one. Or you can kind of build your own from whatever hardware vendor you prefer, Dell, HP, Lenovo, or someone else. And you can even do single server backups. So if you just have one server that you need to protect, you can install VDR for ShadowProtect on that server and then have it back up to the eFolder cloud. We also offer cross-site replication. So, essentially you can have two client locations and have two VDRs at each one and have them kind of replicate to one another. So that way you enjoy really robust data protection and you kind of have the peace of mind that you have data in more than one place. eFolder VDR for ShadowProtect offers deep RMM integration. So, for example, we partner with LabTech to offer a really great integration there. So that way you can get all sorts of information and you're able to remote in if there are any issues that crop up. As I mentioned, we offer pretty flexible deployment options. So ShadowProtect, eFolder VDR for ShadowProtect can be deployed with or without a VDR appliance, which is pretty cool. And ShadowProtect also offers extensive chain management and verification. So even though you are dealing with chains, we make sure that all of the data in those chains is integral and that it's safe and isn't corrupted. And finally, with eFolder VDR for ShadowProtect, you can actually restore to dissimilar hardware, which is another feature that a lot of our partners find handy. So where does, when you're deciding which one to adopt, whether ShadowProtect or another solution, let's look at where ShadowProtect is kind of an ideal solution. So number one, obviously, if you've used ShadowProtect before for other VDR solutions, it is a pretty well used solution in the industry. So if you're already familiar with it, then going with eFolder VDR for ShadowProtect is going to be something that you're going to find a very easy transition and you're not going to have to learn a lot. Now, I mentioned before that we offer pretty great RMM integration. We also offer pretty good PSA integration. So for those of you who use Autotask or ConnectWise for supporting and ticketing, VDR for ShadowProtect is a great solution for all of you. And, finally, ShadowProtect is great for clients who don't need near instant virtualization. Not something that with ShadowProtect you can't get today, but something that a lot of clients frankly don't need unless they're in very, very sensitive verticals. And if they're able to get along without that, then ShadowProtect is a great solution for them. Now, Phil, I'd kind of like to turn the stage over to you and kind of learn about, what you were using prior to adopting VDR for ShadowProtect, why you decided to adopt it, and how your overall experience has been.
Okay, great. We've been doing cloud backup for a really long time. There was a local guy in the market that had written some software that was backing up to the cloud. We got away from tape, probably, I don't know, probably as much as 10 years ago, and we were using a local company for their backup. And one of the big issues with their product, it worked, it restored files. The problem is that it had errors often, and we were looking for a better solution, and we came across eFolder. So prior to that, we were using another file and folder type backup, and then we moved to eFolder's file and folder backup. And from there, we, again, as the market developed and as really the businesses became more aware of availability and the importance of availability, and as we basically began to educate businesses about the cost of downtime, the next progression, of course, was to go into a BDR type solution, something that had a much quicker recovery. In our terms at BIS, we call it, backup, and then our backup disaster recovery would be file and folder and business continuity. We use the differentiation in language in order to differentiate the solutions. Is basically, one is for you're not out of business, but you're going to be out of work for a little while, and the other is more we're going to get you back up really quickly so that you're able to, get up and get moving. And that's really the factors that kind of had us adopt the eFolder BDR solution, was just availability. And we've been very pleased overall with ShadowProtect. It's been a great product, tried true. We've never had a file we couldn't restore. Never had a server we couldn't run on, and we've tested it in several occasions over the years in some pretty pretty dramatic ways, where if we would not have been able to restore, there would have been some big trouble on the horizon. So tried true product works well. So overall experience has been really positive.
Awesome. Cool. Yeah, I mean, that's one of the highlights about ShadowProtect, is that it's so widely known and so well trusted that people, like partners like you and many others, just tell us it's really reliable and we can always count on it. So that's one reason why a lot of people choose to adopt it.
Sure.
Yeah. Sorry. Did you have some that?
No, I was just going to say, that's critical. It's like anything else. Our phones ring off the hook for people always trying to sell us something or whatever, and I think that sometimes moving too quickly and making the wrong decision can be very painful. One of the things that we have found is that in the backup world, it's kind of one of those areas for whenever in dealing with a client, they've entrusted an enormous amount of faith in you and what you're doing for them. And most of our clients, probably like most MSPs, they never check. We've told them their backup's good, therefore their backup's good. We told them we're going to let you sleep at night, and they're sleeping at night. And if you ever mess up, you're probably going to lose that client. So overall, we've never lost a file, so that's a good place to be.
Yep. Yeah, definitely. BDR is not something where you want to mess around and experiment too much with things you're not sure about.
Yes.
Cool. So now we kind of go into the other BDR solution we're going to be talking about today, which is one of our newer offerings called eFolder BDR for Replibit. So as the name implies, we've partnered with Replibit. They're another maker of a kind of new and innovative image-based software, backup software, and they've got some cool features that a lot of partners like about them. The first and probably the most foremost one is that BDR for Replibit offers chain-free backup technology. So, for those of you kind of unfamiliar with what this means, it means that essentially every backup is kind of independent. and it's not linked to a previous backup. So the benefit of this is that you don't have to deal with the potential risk of a chain of backups corrupting somewhere way back in the chain, and then all the future backups not being reliable. So even if, you know, a backup from, let's say, 6 months ago were somehow to get corrupted or damaged, that wouldn't affect the most recent backup. So chain-free backup technology is really great for people who are understandably worried about the integrity of their backup. Another feature is automated testing and screenshot verification. So with eFolder BDR for Replibit, you get automated screenshot verifications every night, and you get this boot VM check. So you get an automatic notice if the VM boots correctly, and if for some reason it doesn't, then you get notified. So you really know that you can stay on top of everything and make sure everything is working as it should. The third feature that makes BDR for Replibit special is extensive data verification checks. So again, this is pretty similar to what I talked about before, but you can easily check whether the data is actually good, and so you know if there are any issues that may crop up. The fourth thing that BDR for Replibit brings to the table is deep ConnectWise integration. So for those of you, many of our partners use ConnectWise, and so BDR for Replibit integrates really seamlessly with ConnectWise. You get great integration. You get a lot of alerting and support if anything were to go wrong. So that's really great. Another great thing about BDR for Replibit is that hardware agnostic. So it works not only on Windows but also on Linux. So you can really use whatever hardware you're comfortable with. You don't have to provision Windows Server if you don't want to or don't need to, or you don't want to deal with the price of a Windows Server license. So again, hardware agnostic, and the fact that it comes with its own operating system reduces the overall total cost of ownership for MSPs. So when is BDR for Replibit kind of ideal? One, as I alluded to before, is for partners who rely on ConnectWise for ticketing and support notifications. BDR for Replibit is really a great choice because you have that deep ConnectWise integration. Now, MSPs always love to talk about your single pane of glass, just one place where they can monitor and manage their BDR solution, and Replibit plays in perfect with that idea because it's really simple to deploy and really simple to manage and monitor. And again, as I mentioned before, without the dependency on chain, you find that data corruption is pretty much non-existent. And also, there's a low storage footprint in the cloud because you don't have this ginormous chain that accumulates over the months and years with kind of these old crusty backups that you don't need anymore. Each backup is separate, and if you want to save space and purge old data that you know for sure that you don't need, then you can do that with Replibit, and everything will still work as it should. So I'm going to hand back the ball over to you again, Phil, and kind of have you kind of discuss what factors led you to adopt eFolder BDR for Replibit, and what have your overall experience been like with BDR for Replibit?
Well, for us, I sit in on several peer groups, and I really find that is some of the best use of my time. So in doing that, what I find is that, what I found was a lot of my partners were using it. They had made the transition. So that's kind of where I really got comfortable with the fact I'd heard about the things, all the things that you kind of went over previously, and so that was a big factor. we like the thought of the chainless thing, with the way that it handles the data, because to me, the big risk and one of the problems that we had with ShadowProtect is that backup gets bigger and bigger and bigger over time. And at some point you're going to have to go back out and reseed. So that was a problem. And then also the way that ShadowProtect does the overall, it does the dailies, compresses the dailies, and then it compresses the dailies into weeklies, and then the weeklies into monthlies. We were having trouble with some people with low bandwidth, some of our clients with low bandwidth, getting that data off-site, on that kind of month-end cycle. So that was another big, big challenge for us that kind of had us looking. But one of the things that I found that I kept hearing, at least from my peer group partners, and they're like, yeah, it seems to require less maintenance. And that was originally, again, the reason why we moved from the local kind of cloud backup guy to eFolder, their flagship product, y'all's flagship product, over to that. And we have found that Replibit seems to require less day-to-day maintenance. And I could see why, because again, that continuous chain is going to be a harder, more moving parts that have to connect. So that's pretty much the reasons that we wanted to try. And again, we took about, I think, 3 servers or 5 servers, and we said, hey, we're gonna next 5 we onboard, we're gonna try Replibit. And the overall experience has been really well. What I like about eFolder as a partner is that the technical support, where ShadowProtect has maybe a bit better support from them, whereas now with eFolder you guys can support the Replibit. So you helped us getting it onboarded, and it was good, and we've overall really liked it. We love the single pane of glass. I like the GUI, and of course we like the ability not to have to buy a Microsoft server license for all of our BDR units out in the field. And so overall experience has been really well. A little hiccup here or there because we were kind of maybe a little early adopter coming on, but I'll tell you, once the product is installed and working, it really works, and it doesn't require a lot of touching. And we like that because those man hours can go to a more client-facing task at hand for the technicians.
Right. Yeah, no, that's a good point. That BDR for Replibit, we talked to a lot of partners, and it seems like it overall just reduces the amount of labor that they have to engage in. So obviously, big savings of time and money there. So cool. This is awesome. And we have a few case studies to go through, but before that, I want to tackle a few questions that have come in from the audience. So one question here from Rick is, with either product, so BDR for ShadowProtect or BDR for Replibit, how do you keep last year's backup for future reference? Phil, do you want to try to tackle that since you've had experience with both?
Sure. Of course, you have the ability to keep the you have the ability to with Replibit, how long you want to keep something, and with ShadowProtect, again, that's kind of what we consider a con, a minus, is the fact that it just keeps on going and growing and growing. But I'll use ShadowProtect as an example. What we do is we take that image that we've kept, like whenever we go out to reseed, say a backup has gotten really large, and what we find is when a backup gets really large, I guess there's so many chains, we start to have problems. So we go out and reseed, and we'll simply take out a USB drive, and we'll archive that data onto a USB drive and then store it on site. Normally in our clients, we're only responsible for 365 days the way that we sell our solution. So we'll keep the last backup on site, is how we do it. We've honestly we haven't been using Replibit long enough to do that, but I'm sure that would be the way that we would handle that, is the same way. We would take that image, we'd put it on a USB drive, we'd either store it in our vault or we'd store it on the client site. So basically we could always go back and mount those drives and restore files or whatever we needed to do.
Cool. Great. Let's see, another question here from Peter asking, is Replibit Linux? The answer is yes. Replibit is built on a hardened Linux kernel, or Unix kernel. So the answer there is yes. Let's see a couple more.
Look, you may want to add on that, Neeraj, that it's really a distro is what it is. You download the distro and you just drop it on the box, on the whatever you're going to use for your BDR appliance. So the Replibit software is basically inside the distro. So it's not like you have to load a base Linux app, base Linux server, and then load it. It's all in one. Pretty easy to install.
Right. Yeah, good point. Thanks for adding that. Here's another question. Can you elaborate on how you get the chain issue? So have you had any experience with chains and getting around that with Replibit?
Not with Replibit because, I'm not the most technical guy and going to explain this, but I want to make an attempt at this because I think it's crucial to the overall way that this works. In my mind, I see the Replibit as, if you were to look at the odds of needing a file, you're going to need the most recent file much more likely than the oldest file. And if you put the two solutions side by side, your oldest file would be more readily available with ShadowProtect in the way that their technology meets, because each time you get a backup, you basically add a layer or a link in the chain. Whereas with the way that Replibit works, it's you're restoring that. There's no real chain, but in some way it is grouping the files back together. You're going to have a much more likely chance of getting the newest backup not corrupt rather than the oldest. Does that sound right?
Yeah, no, I believe so.
Yeah,
no, it sounds like it. Let's see. Okay, Brandon got kind of, I guess, based off of that. Can you run the Replibit distro from a USB or SD card on the BDR?
I've never tried it off of a USB, but I know you could off SD for sure. On a solid state disk, I know you could. It probably would run off of a USB. I just don't, I don't trust USB that technology that much, as far as the reliability of it. So we've never tried it.
Right. I mean, the answer is yes. You can do it off a USB, but we typically don't see partners trying to do that. But if you wanted to, then yes, you could. Let's see. Can the client site, okay, this is a question from Matt. Can the client site connect to the eFolder cloud via VPN to access the server in a disaster situation? And I mean, the answer is that the whole point of eFolder BDR for ShadowProtect or BDR for Replibit is that you can recover data from the. So we have not only the eFolder storage cloud, but we have the eFolder continuity cloud. And what you can do in the continuity cloud is spin up a node in the continuity cloud with a bunch of your client's data, and then virtualize it on the BDR itself. So even though you're not like downloading that data, to directly to the BDR appliance. If it's tons and tons of data and you just need access to it immediately, you can spin up a virtual host in the eFolder cloud and just connect to it. And the process for that is really simple. You like a partner, ask us to spin up a continuity cloud node. It's available, 24/7, 365. And we literally just do that for you. It takes a pretty short amount of time. And then we give you the login credentials and you log in and you're able to see the virtual environment, right in front of you and access everything as if your local server were operational. So cool. So let's kind of move on to a few case studies that you have to share, Phil. Let me get over to the next slide. So yeah, a few case studies from BIS Technology Group. And the first is air conditioning. So do you want to kind of go into this?
Sure. Again, this is a pretty small client. They probably have maybe 25, 30 clients, 30 employees, and they do air conditioning service work. And another thing that they've added is they do generators for Lowe's, Lowe's, the home improvement box store. And so they've really grown. I think that the generator installation part of their business makes up 30 to 40% of their business, and that happened over just a couple of years. So they've been a long-term client of mine. They were previously just doing air conditioning. They had this uptick in business, so they've hired new people, and they went with a module that basically allows their people to put in work orders and fill out work orders, their employees, their technicians, to put in tickets, basically fill out their tickets, close tickets in the field. And they were doing that to improve their efficiency. So in doing so, we had to upgrade the server to accommodate this new, basically, module, if you will. And in the conversation of what they're doing, we began to have the conversation. I began to ask the questions. How long can you be without this data? What's this look like? And one of the metrics that Lowe's imposes on them is they basically have SLAs, if you will. They have a certain amount of time that from the time that somebody requests service to the time that they get the install, or the sales guy goes out, or the team that goes out to onboard them, kind of like the same things we do. They have time limits they have to hit. So whenever we sized everything up, it really made a lot of sense to put in a BDR in the event that if they did have downtime, we'd be able to get them up very quickly. They couldn't suffer through 2 or 3 days of downtime, and they have so many more tickets than they used to have on the schedule that they no longer keep it on paper like they did when they were a smaller air conditioning company. So basically it made sense. One of the things that had us go with ShadowProtect over Replibit was the fact that he was insistent that he use this server that I sold him about 3 years ago. Normally we're trying to get about 5 years of life out of a server, but again, because of the kind of the dynamic in his business and adding this module, we had to replace the server to get some more horsepower. Well, he was insistent that we use this particular box, and I felt like from a performance standpoint, it more fit the ShadowProtect model of resources, whereas in my mind, the Replibit is going to need a bit more robust server in order to run. So we chose to stay with with ShadowProtect or implement ShadowProtect in this particular situation.
Cool. Yeah, kind of related to that, here's a question before we move on to the next case study. We've got a question from William who says, what hardware are you using for the local appliance? Do you build your own, or do you buy a name brand? And that's a great question, William. And both ShadowProtect and Replibit can run on pretty much any hardware you want. So the great thing about that is, if you prefer to source your hardware from us, eFolder, you're more than welcome to do that. Or if you have, let's say, a hardware contract with Dell or Lenovo or HP, you can go with them. Or you can even do a single server backup. Just install ShadowProtect onto it and back it up directly to the cloud. So, in terms of deployment options, both of them are really robust. As I mentioned before, Replibit is hardware agnostic. It can run on almost any kind of hardware you want. I mean, that said, as we talked about before, even the USB, like running the distro off of USB, is technically possible. It's not something that, we really recommend simply because it just wouldn't be that fast. And if, speed is obviously a priority, then you want to have the fastest medium available. So you'd probably, rather than using a USB, you might opt for an SD card or something like that.
That's right.
So,
and one thing,
yep.
I'm sorry.
No, absolutely. Go ahead.
And it would depend on really what you're trying to accomplish. Are you trying to get a volume, snapshot of this machine where you can restore files? Or are you trying to spin the machine up and it be a virtual, backup appliance so that if the main server went down, you could actually run it off of, the backup hardware? And generally, although we do using ShadowProtect, we have some network attached storage devices. It seems like the Synology iSCSIs are the ones that work the best, but we do have some environments where kind of the game would be we back up using ShadowProtect to this Synology box, and in the event that something failed, we would bring in another box with Hyper-V on it, and we would start that image up, or we could mount it and restore files using just an iSCSI connector. And that's what I like, even about eFolder, is the flexibility of all the ways that you can back up. You can back up to your data center, you can back up to theirs, you can back up site to site. But to the question, I think you have to ask yourself first, do I want to virtualize this box? And that really drives the equation as to what kind of hardware you put under it.
Yeah, actually, kind of related to that, I have a question for you, Phil, from Alan. He says, why do you think the Replibit BDR requires a more server than DDR for ShadowProtect? So why would ShadowProtect run faster on older hardware?
Yeah, and again, that could be a wives' tale that somebody needs to straighten me out on, but again, I lean on my peer group, and that's the data I was getting out of them. I have not experienced it personally. Again, I'm a new adopter. We've probably only been using Replibit for about 6 months, so that is just what I believe. And my understanding is it's a lot more I/O intense. And Neeraj, you may could straighten me out, or maybe we need to table that question and get one of the engineers to quantify that for us.
Yeah. No, that's definitely, something that ShadowProtect and Replibit I'm very familiar with, but I'm not, obviously I'm not as knowledgeable as a full-time engineer. But yeah, that's a great question, and we can definitely follow up with you on that. Okay, let's see, one more question from Scott before we move on to our next case study, which is, Philip, could you please elaborate on using a NAS with ShadowProtect and recovery, meaning like bringing the virtual server on site, obtaining the ShadowProtect image from the NAS, and on and on? How would Replibit be a substitute in this situation?
Okay, I don't know that Replibit would be a substitute for that. In my mind, it would not. But I can tell you how we use a NAS. And again, you have to, it's all in the sales process. It's all in the questions that I ask, and I think we're going to get there in a minute, so I'll save that for there. But you can use a NAS in an environment, and you could even run off of some particular, for instance, I use Synology because we've had good luck with those, and they have a pretty high I/O. And what you would do is, now it wouldn't work for somebody with a super robust server requirement with a lot of I/O. It wouldn't work for a big SQL server. But for a file server, you could basically put a NAS in there and use ShadowProtect to store the image on the NAS. And then, let's say the main server failed. I would bring in one of my, like a loaner box, a loaner a loaner server with Hyper-V installed, and I would connect to that image using the iSCSI initiator, and I would basically virtualize and run off of the Synology. The Synology would hold the data and would be, would run. But again, if you've got a real robust need, that would not be a solution for anybody.
Yeah. Cool. So thanks for answering all those questions. I know a lot of them are pretty technical. Let's move on to your second case study here. Let's see where I can get my mouse. Yep. So yeah, let's learn about your case study for eFolder BDR for Replibit.
Yeah, I was working with, and I'm sure all of the MSPs on the call, they get it, that compliance and security is becoming such a big thing, and it's the factor that really drives the day as far as how things work. And I was working with a particular title insurance company, and the banks are now requiring that they get certified with the American Land Title Association. And in doing that, they went through an audit by some, it's a third-party company that comes in and does the audit, and it really changed the conversation, whereas before they were not as concerned and they didn't see the value of the image-based servers. But during that audit, as the auditor questioned and made things, it opened up the opportunity to reinitiate the conversation about business continuity versus disaster recovery. And if you know anything about the title insurance company, they're very, very, very document-centric. They use a lot of documents, and in the market where I serve, there's a lot of condominiums on the beach, and the title industry is, you have to go back until as far back as you can look to get the title history. Well, once that work has been done, the next time, like in a condo, say you sell a condo and it flips and somebody else buys it, all they do is go pull the document where they closed it last time and just check a couple of things, and boom, it's ready to go. So their documents are very, 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 sorry guys, are very, very, very worth a lot of money because they have a lot of time associated with them, and they have a lot of them. So in doing this, and the way that you guys have kind of changed, eFolder has changed the model with being able to store 2 terabytes for every server off-site. It just made a lot of sense to move to Replibit and go ahead and get them under a business continuity solution rather than just a cloud backup solution. So that's kind of the way it all came down. The auditor re-emphasized really what I had told them before, enough to bring interest into the market again, or into their mind again. And they had a lot of files with a lot of data, and the way that eFolder had changed the structure with 2 terabytes being stored off-site, dollars and cents wise, I could get the solution in there and get them covered and make some money.
Right. And it's kind of interesting that often we find MSPs kind of telling their clients about the need for a business continuity solution, but here it was almost like from the ground up. That's like that, oh shoot, we got an upcoming audit, so we got to ensure that not only do we have backup, but we can bring up that data real quickly if it were ever to be deleted or disappear. So.
Exactly, and it was really during the audit that they were a prophet has no following in their own town, so you know how our clients are. Sometimes they hear us and they don't hear us, and then some other guy shows up and tells them the same thing you've been telling them for years, and all of a sudden they got to act today. So that's kind of a little bit the way that happened. They began to realize the implications of it, and really backup, disaster recovery, business continuity, that lands squarely in the security camp, because we all know with crypto and the morphing of it and all the things that are going on, without a backup, these guys are done, and they literally, in this industry, the work that they have that could make them quick, easy money, for the next transaction on a piece of property, has been lost. So, you start adding up man hours of what it takes sometimes to get a title where you can get it insured, and if you can just simply, touch it just a little bit, and then boom, you got it, and you make the same amount of money, whether it's a hard closing or an easy closing, or a hard title research or an easy title research, that really drives home.
Right. Yeah. No, great. So this is another great case study. Thanks for sharing. So, I kind of want to, now that we've talked about both ShadowProtect and Replibit, I kind of want to do just a real quick compare and contrast type thing for the webinar today. So, ShadowProtect, obviously, as Phil mentioned, it's a very mature, well-known, well-trusted, kind of a traditional solution. Absolutely nothing wrong with it. It's just something that, people have tried for a long time and they love it because they just know it works. And, then there's Replibit, definitely newer and kind of more innovative in the way that the technology works, especially in terms of being chain-free and hardware agnostic and offering a lot of data verification. And so, for partners, it's kind of a choice whether you want to stick with something that's been around for a long time, that for a fact is, can be completely trusted, or you want to try something new that obviously is very reliable. I'm not saying, by any means it's a bit unreliable, and it's rock solid, and we never had any issues with it. But obviously, as a new product, we know that some partners will, kind of look at it as, oh, it's a little new, can I really trust it as much as I can, something like ShadowProtect. Another thing about ShadowProtect and Replibit is about the hardware. ShadowProtect is obviously compatible with legacy hardware, as I mentioned. You can do a single server backup, or you can source your BDR appliance from eFolder, or you can build your own or bring your own from whichever hardware vendor you prefer. And Replibit similarly is hardware agnostic. So both of them kind of give you the flexibility hardware-wise. So we don't try to make you conform to, one kind of hardware deployment that we like. It's really up to you. And finally, both ShadowProtect and Replibit are really user-friendly for the MSP. So ShadowProtect, little training required, especially for those who have already used the ShadowProtect software. It's very little to learn. And Replibit, even though it is something new to learn for most partners, it's really painless to deploy. We give you the support and the tools necessary to deploy it real easily. As Phil mentioned, the distro is it's just one seamless piece of equipment. So you don't have to deal with like installing Replibit on top of an existing Linux base. It's all kind of built into one unit. So it's really painless to deploy. So just a few more questions for you, Phil. I'll just list them all out here. So who are your typical BDR clients? How do you typically start the conversation around business continuity, especially if they're, kind of opposed to it, or you're not sure why you need it. And then, when they do resist, how do you handle that?
Sure. You know, in my mind, they're all BDR clients. If they've got a server, if they've got any data, I'm going to try that. And one of the things that we did, just with pricing models changing and ultimately storage getting cheaper and everything, I go for the BDR, or the what I call the business continuity solution every time. Just because, I mean, whenever you're looking at it, we all know that somebody puts data on a server when you're using file and folder. Somebody puts something somewhere that's not in the backup set, and all of a sudden something happens, and then boom, you need it. So, and also another thing that we've done is we don't take on anybody unless there's some form of MSP. We have different packages we sell. And if they don't fall in one of those, then we don't take them on. And our packages come with where we're holding some risk, whether it's just we sell like a package where we give them unlimited help desk, or we give them that plus unlimited on-site plus projects are included. So there's these 3 different levels, but any way you slice it, I'm holding some of the risk. And if I can restore something quickly, fastly, boom, get them back up and get them going, it costs me less to maintain that client. So in the end of the day, I want them to have a solution that I know is going to work. So who is a typical client? It's anybody. Now, of course, we all know that some clients are easier than others, but I have it spread across the board. I mean, if you looked at the guys that I'm protecting their whole servers, they are going to, everywhere from, air conditioning companies to medical practices, manufacturing companies, anybody who has important data. And I think it starts around the conversation is where you have to kind of walk somebody through the risk and the threat and the pain of having a server go down. And a lot of times the initial response will be, well, yeah, I could be without my server up and running where I could have access to my data for 3 or 4 days. Okay, well, which 3 or 4 days? Okay, what about when payroll is due? Can you be without it on payroll day? Oh no, gosh, if we didn't make payroll, we'd be dead. So you kind of have to, walk them through a little bit of the pain and the reality. They could be without it every day but Thursday when they do payroll. And so I think that's one way. And I think really to be a successful MSP, we're going to have to get to where we can relate to every one of our clients like the title company. I had to learn a lot about a title company and understand so that I could, reinforce the fact that those, the title research that they've done is very, very, very valuable. I met with an architect this morning, and he was concerned with his financial data, and rightfully so, he should. But I began to talk to him about some of the data that he had in the architectural data, the CAD files and the Revit files that he had, and I'm like, well, how long? He's doing a presentation here in a couple of weeks, and I was asking him how many hours he had in making this presentation, and he just shook his head. He didn't know, but he had a team of people that had been working on it for weeks. Big project. And I'm like, well, what if that got crypto on it the day before the presentation and you couldn't do it? What would that cost your company? So I think sometimes getting the client to realize that how expensive data is. I own a marketing company, and there's times that we're developing marketing material for clients, and literally we'll have 40, 60 hours in a brochure or something, and if we were to lose that, that would be very costly. So I think helping them understand the value of their data and kind of getting kneecap to kneecap as a business owner and a consultant rather than just a sales guy is critical. And handling client resistance is, once I've kind of taken them down that road and had those conversations with them, you know, you don't ever want to say, I hope what I've told you is not right, or, I hope this never happens to us. But, at some point, I think that, I make them really where they sign to say they sign a document to me whenever they pick which backup solution they want, they initial and sign, because I never want to go back to them and them tell me, this happened early on in my career, where a client said, well, man, why didn't you tell me that? If I would have known that, I would have made this decision. So I have a simple little form where they opt for which one they get, and I have them sign. And a lot of times that right there, I think, will push them to do the right thing.
Right. Great. Let's see. I'm wondering if we have time to tackle these. I think number 1 and 2. Well, number 1 is, I think, pretty straightforward. It's important to have business continuity in order to protect your clients from data loss on time. But I think numbers 2 and 3 are pretty interesting. So are there any benefits to having 2 different BDR offerings in your portfolio? And then how do you price and package them both?
Okay, well, I'll knock out the bottom one. I price them exactly the same. Maybe I need to have a second thought on that, but I really don't see any difference. And a lot of times I'm selling, we call them data guards, and the client doesn't know whether it's got a ShadowProtect or Replibit. So at the end of the day, there's no difference to the client as to what I sell. I pretty much make the decision as to which way they go. So we're pricing them the same. I always like to have options. I believe that being in a position to have options is always good, because you just never know. There's been some great companies that have failed, and having 2 options from that standpoint alone. What if ShadowProtect got bought out by a new company? What if Replibit, went belly up? Or from that standpoint, I think it's extremely important. And one thing to note about Replibit right now that is, maybe I know they're working on the compliance piece right now, but they're not HIPAA compliant right now. I don't think they can sign a BA. So that would be a reason, if you're working in the medical space and you had to sign a business associate agreement, you couldn't do it using Replibit at this moment. I know they're charging for it, and I think very quickly that's going to come. But, again, that's another reason to keep 2.
Right. Good. Let's see. We finally got to the Q&A at just about the top of the hour. Let's see if there are any questions we can quickly tackle. Let's see. So here's a question from Brandon. When ShadowProtect can be deployed in a single server environment, can Replibit be deployed in the same way, or does it always require a dedicated BDR or dedicated device?
Yeah, Replibit's always going to require a dedicated device.
Yep. Yeah, I guess just the nature of the way it works. Yep. Let's see. Honestly, unfortunately, we're out of time. We have so many great questions. And, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to take all of these and see what we can answer, get you answers through email, and we really do appreciate all of them coming in. Let's see. Yeah, so we'll definitely make sure that happens. Just real quick, I want to highlight that one of the resources we're going to be providing to everyone who attended today is one of our on-demand webinars featuring our VP of Marketing, Ted Halsey, called How to Price and Package and Sell BDR, featuring 3 different eFolder partners and 3 different BDR solutions. So that'll be, I think, really helpful for all of you. And we're also going to be sending you one of our playbooks. It's called the Business Continuity Playbook. And we have 4 playbooks that are all designed to help MSPs sell things like file sync and BDR and cloud-to-cloud backup to their clients. And so our business continuity playbook has things like white papers, blogs, ebooks, and these are all written by us or produced by us, but they don't have the eFolder branding on them. So what we encourage you to do is take them, put your own name on them, and really like put them on your website or in your blog, wherever you, or send them out through email, and really get the word out about why your clients need a BDR solution. And so we're going to be sending that out through email. And yeah, thank you so much. I know we're just a couple minutes over. My name is Neeraj Periwal again. Thank you so much for joining us for today's webinar. A huge thanks to Phil. Phil, thank you so much for taking the time. You know, we always love doing webinars with you, and you're always great to have on. So thank you again so much for your time.
You're very welcome, Neeraj. You guys are a great partner for me, and I appreciate all y'all do.
Great. All right. Well, thank you again, everyone, for joining, for watching. I'll try to get as many questions answered as possible that you asked before. But for now, thank you all for joining, and have a good one. And we'll see you later. All right. Talk to you later now. Bye.
Thank you.